Welcome. Today we will continue with the second lecture on spiritual science with the subject Metaphysics Beyond the Limits of Physics. First, I will give you a recap of the conclusions of 2 weeks back. Universal science also includes philosophical and religious perspectives. Universal science can therefore be found in the Theosophia, the synthesis of science, philosophy and religion. In classical antiquity, in particular with the Greeks, many thoughts can be found of the Theosophia, such as those expressed in the three propositions. Universal scientific ideas recur in Western thought from the Renaissance onwards. Also, nowadays, there are examples of scientists who start from the consciousness starting point and/or who emphasize that science should, above all, help solve social problems. Today we will be addressing three themes of physics. First, what is nature? Second, what is force and what is matter? And third, how does that all relate to motion? Today the lecture will be divided into the following three parts. Part 1, nature according to metaphysics. Part 2, force and matter and motion according to metaphysics. And part 3, the application of metaphysics on modern theories of the micro and macrocosmos. So, first, part 1, nature according to metaphysics. Today we will talk about metaphysics beyond the limits of physics. Indeed, contemporary physics is increasingly shifting towards metaphysics. That is, the real causes are increasingly being sought behind material phenomena. Tonight we are going to delve into the issues of physics by looking at them from the angle of metaphysics. And in doing so, we will start filling in metaphysics by the ideas from the Theosophia. And the method of discussion will be by always comparing the ideas and principles from Theosophia, that is metaphysics, on the one hand, and on the other hand, we will look at physics according to the existing mentality and theories in physics, and sometimes also according to a new mentality in physics, but that will be probably rather limited because this is still in its infancy. Firstly, some definitions. Physics is the science of nature. It is a branch of science concerned with the nature and properties of matter and energy or force. Metaphysics is what is beyond physical phenomena. That part of science and philosophy that deals with the causes behind material phenomena. And today we do this from universal science, represented by the Theosophia, and as told 2 weeks back, the Theosophia starts from the premise of the boundlessness of life. That means that everything is alive or is consciousness and exists eternally. And in physics, a world of inanimate matter is assumed. And with the new mentality of the scientists, the idea is that there is a cosmic consciousness field. I refer to the ideas of Itai Shani, which I explained 2 weeks back, and also the ideas of Leonardo Castro. Now, according to the Theosophical, nature is a hierarchy of life. And last week we showed, when talking about Pythagoras, the following diagram of nature explained as a hierarchy of 10 different planes of consciousness and matter that apply to a manifested world, like for instance a galaxy, a solar system, or the Earth. The hierarchy is tenfold, and I show it to you now. We see that there are on the top part 3 different planes which are formless, universal and imperishable. Then we, going from top to bottom, we get 4 planes which are planes of form. They are limited and they are perishable. And finally, at the bottom we have the elemental world consisting of 3 different planes. When we look at the names of the cosmic elements, we see at the top the One, then Spirit, then Ether, Fire, Air, Water and Earth, and also is indicated in this diagram that we as man, and in fact all living beings on our planet Earth, exist on the planes of fire, air, water and earth. That is the spheres, plural, where we have our existence. From the Theosophical, manifested nature as we know it is considered a hierarchy of life created by emanation from the cosmic element ether. So the one you see in this diagram. Also described as cosmic spirit substance, and ether is the 5th cosmic element counting from below, starting from the element earth, and it is also called the quintessence, the quinta essentia, the 5th essence. In the east of the world it is called Akasha, the shining realm. It is also called the reservoir of being and of all manifested beings. Plato, the Greek philosopher, says of it that the divine ideal moves the ether. In the Bible we can read that it is called the cosmic waters. Ether is for us invisible space and the source of the 4 lower cosmic realms indicated by the names of the cosmic elements earth, water, air and fire. The space of a cosmos is thus formed by a cosmic being which causes by emanation the body of that cosmos to manifest. Compare it with the space of our human body. That space is constructed and formed because of our human consciousness through the process of emanation and has attracted lower evolved beings to form our body. It is important to note that this ether of these manifested cosmic realms can again be divided into 7 sub-areas. And the second subplane of the lowest cosmic plane, indicated with the cosmic element Earth, counting from below, is the plane of the ether, spelled differently with E-T-H-E-R and not with A-E-T-H-E-R, is the ether of science. And that is something to keep in the back of your mind, because it plays an important role, as we will see later, in discussions in nowadays science. When we look at the comparison between the definition of nature such as described by metaphysics, then we can see that the hierarchy of life with the source of ether, in the case of metaphysics, also indicates that we have various planes of matter in this model, and each plane has a subplane called ether. When we look at the ideas of contemporary physics, then we talk about, of course, a world of inanimate matter and only one plane of matter. And most scientists also assume that there is a vacuum in space. With the new mentality, with the new scientists, which I described 2 weeks back, the idea is that each living being is an aspect of the cosmic consciousness. So that is another approach. Now we go have a look further to more details of nature. As mentioned, a hierarchy of life arises through the process of emanation or outflow from a source being, a guiding consciousness, a guiding monad, so to speak. That source being emanates on a lower plane a sphere, a force field, you can say, in which less developed monads can live and develop. These lower monads, in turn, form the source beings for even lower monads, and so on. So this is the way it unfolds from the inner worlds to the outer worlds. In the Theosophia, the emanated force field is referred to as Vohad. Vohad is the cosmic vitality guided by cosmic desire and the cosmic consciousness operating behind it. It is important to realize that Vohad is not an abstract thing, but is the outflow of a being with a certain characteristic. Madame Blavatsky describes the characteristic as Vohad as follows. It is the bridge through which the ideas existing in the divine thought of the cosmic beings are printed as natural laws, as habitual patterns on the cosmic substance. So we can say that every Vohad has the color, so to speak, of its source being. Then we go to the next aspect, and that is the emergence of manifested world. When we view this from the metaphysics point of view, we see that emanation of a force field is what the picture is, but in physics only force fields in one plane of matter is assumed. And with the new mentality in physics, there is a similar idea as in the Theosophia, emanation from a cosmic consciousness field. So there you see already some movement in the scientific field where science is within a certain circle of scientists approaching the Theosophical ideas. According to the Theosophia, the laws of nature in the cosmos are habitual patterns of cosmic beings, as they appear to us as laws within the emanation force field of those cosmic beings. A few examples. There are all kinds of electromagnetic forces such as light radiations. If you look at the 11 to 12 year sunspot cycle, for instance, which represents in fact the heartbeat of our sun, this heartbeat produces effects like electromagnetic storms where our electronics on Earth are being affected by. Another example, the cells of our physical body live in the emanated force field the foretic sphere, which is emanated from our human consciousness. Then the physics has a different definition of a law of nature. It is a generally valid regularity observed when considering natural phenomena. In physics, these regularities are mainly described on the basis of the interactions between force and matter. But again, it is only on one plane of force and matter. And on closer inspection, these regularities are only mainly descriptive, but rarely answer the why question, so they do not really explain the cause of these regularities. And several high-level scientists, such as in the last century Richard Feynman, Nobel Prize-winning physicist, acknowledged this really also very much, and he was aware of the fact that we can describe with a lot of mathematics what the processes are, and we can make forecasts or predictions, but the real cause sometimes really remains unknown. There is more to be said about the nature of force fields, of FOA. In the secret doctrine, we find this even more broadly defined. And it reads as follows. FOHAT expresses itself in 7 forms of cosmic magnetism that results in energies which we know in their manifestations as electricity, magnetism, sound, light, heat, cohesion, and so on. Moreover, in the Mahatma letters, we find a further explanation of electricity and magnetism in nature, written by Master Kuthumi. He says, "We know of no phenomenon in nature that does not have some connection with either magnetism or electricity, for wherever there is movement, heat, friction or light, there magnetism and its alter ego, in our humble opinion, electricity will always occur, either as cause or effect, or rather both, if only we probe the phenomena down to its origin. In short, electromagnetism in its various forms is the expression of the many kinds of FOHAT in the cosmos." Now, in physics in the field of the existing mentality, so the mainstream physics, the common view is that 4 different forces can be distinguished. First, the strong nuclear force in the nucleus of the atom, which holds the protons and neutrons together in the nucleus. Then the weak nuclear force, which plays a role in various processes of radioactive decay. Then third, the electromagnetic force, that is the force between electrically charged particles. And the fourth, gravitation, which holds matter together at the level of the macrocosmos. The most widely accepted theory is based on the theory of gravitational force of gravity. But one of the alternative theories is that the universe can be considered as an electric or plasma universe, because phenomena would be better explained in that way. More about that later today and later on in the lecture. I will come back to that. Then we go to another important idea in the Theosophia, is that all living beings are deeply interconnected. Indeed, the very deepest essence of every being is the boundless, the source of all life. All beings are emanations of the boundless, and therefore everything is connected to everything. Every being has an infinite inner potential for further development, partly already developed and partly latent. Concretely, this means that a being can live in an ever higher part of its composite nature, which includes a greater range of consciousness. But the fundamental interconnectedness is always there as far as the cosmos reaches, whether a being is aware of it or not. Now, with the existing mentality in physics, one has a slightly different picture. In quantum physics, and we will talk more about that later on, one has defined the concept of non-locality through the study of material phenomena. And this non-locality implies the following: that there is a space where time and place play no role, where everything is connected instantaneously and continuously. In that non-local space, there is a reality not yet understood in physics that constantly influences our physical world. And this is a fact, while at the same time quite a few scientists assume that there is a vacuum between all material particles. Now, these two assumptions give a lot of, let's say, issues in physics. Scientists arrived at this idea based on the results of several experiments with atomic particles, which showed that two particles coming from the same source can influence each other at considerable distances, and then we are talking about kilometers. So they can influence each other, although they are separated on a large distance, and they can influence each other instantaneously. For instance, if you influence one particle locally, you thereby at that distance also influence instantaneously the other particle. One therefore calls that influence non-local, not bound to the place where you influence one of the particles. Besides non-local behavior, another concept used in physics is that of entanglement. This indicates that the interconnectedness of those particles, if you influence one particle, you influence also the other particle. From the Theosophica, this is not so surprising, because of the fundamental connectedness of everything to each other. Now, interestingly, there is also a number of young scientists, and I want to mention two of them. They are called Andrew Lorek and Bruce Bream, who have launched the concept of a non-local universe. And they assumed that this is an animated universe full of life. And this approach is very promising. It is a concept that is shifting and approaching towards Theosophy. They assume ether, so they don't assume a vacuum in space, and everything is connected to everything. And they assume consciousness to be everywhere, introducing especially the term the meaning of exchange in the universe, so that there is a meaning behind all this. So this is what I wanted to share with you in the first part. We are going to take a break of some 3 minutes, and we will see you back, and hopefully you have some questions or remarks maybe on the first part of this lecture. See you within 3 minutes. Welcome back. Any questions?
Yes, there are some questions, Joop.
Okay.
The first one was in the beginning of your speech with a recap. And that question is, the ether you talked about, is that the same as the astral light?
Well, if we look at the scheme that I presented, where I showed the 10 planes of the manifested world, then I showed that in the second scheme that I showed, I had indicated that for the plane indicated by the cosmic element Earth, that there is each of these planes are subdivided in 7 subplanes, and the second subplane of this cosmic element Earth was indicated by ether, spelled as E-T-H-E-R, and that ether, actually the ether that science is searching for or is discussing, is in fact the same, more or less, as what is called in the Theosophical the astral light. So it is in fact for the globe of our Earth. It is the astral part or the astral field from which is the model for the physical globe of our Earth. So yes, you can consider them as being identical.
Well, thanks. Then another question. Is it also that a comet can be compared to a fertilized egg cell? So the macro and microcosmos are so above and so below?
Yeah, that's a very interesting remark. Thank you for that question. In fact, I think that in the previous series of lectures, Henk Bezemer also, if I'm not mistaken, showed that there is one general universal process of, let's say, coming into manifestation, and that on our world and with at present, when man is coming into manifestation, it is with an egg and a sperm that is combined and then is making a journey through the uterus of the female body. And what we see in space is something similar, that there is first a cloud where a nucleus is starting, and this nucleus is starting through a part of space which is really not haphazard, but is determined by the karmic attraction, which is translated into electromagnetic attractions in a certain part of space. And in that part of space, this comet is going to make journeys, cyclic journeys, and in that journey, comparable to the journey of this fertilized egg in the uterus, it is collecting its material to build up its manifestation, to build up its body, to finally become a planet or a sun. So it is a same type of process, and it is really indeed comparable. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
I've got a next question.
Yeah.
Astrology describes the connection between the position of heavenly bodies and life on Earth.
Yeah.
Is this insight recognized with metaphysics or the new mentality? What can you say about that?
Yeah. Well, in physics, of course, it is not recognized yet. Although in the past there were what we call scientists, like Johannes Kepler, for instance, who is famous for his theories on the motion of planets around the sun. But he was also an astrologist, so he combined the physics and the metaphysics. In metaphysics, I can say yes, this is an aspect that really is of importance, because in metaphysics, when we talk about the Theosophia, everything in the universe is alive. So the environment of the solar system, of our solar system, is the 12 signs of the zodiac, and this is the living environment of the solar system, and that has an interaction or influence on our solar system. And within the solar system, we have again influences. So first coming from these zodiacal signs, and then in the solar system we have the 7 influences of the sun, which is going to the planets and to all life on the planets in the solar system. And also there is an exchange between the various planetary globes in the solar system itself. So, and since for every planet we are actually talking in metaphysics about a planetary chain, so there are in fact 7 manifested globes on different planes, and via all these planes are all kinds of exchanges of influences. So it is a very complex total. And it is all, this what used to be known in very much detail in the universal science of antiquity. In the modern scientists, so the ones with the new mentality, I have not read anything about that they have any detailed models or ideas about this. So I think we can say that only in metaphysics, represented by the Theosophia, you can find that these influences, these astrological influences are there. Although we say always that the stars don't compel, they only, how do you say it in English? They only give you a kind of I'm looking for the English word. A feeling of an urge, but they never compel you. You are always the one who decides whether you feel this urge or experience this urge or not. You are the one who takes decisions. So you are never forced by the stars or the planets to do something.
Could be a lecture on itself, I think.
Yeah, but I have given lectures on that topic, I think 2 or 3 years ago on that topic.
Someone makes a remark. He thanks you for the beautiful explanation of the birth of a planet.
Yeah.
And he asks after that, is a planet also a rebirth of a new star or galaxy?
It depends. It can be, as I said, it can be the rebirth of a star or so a sun, but also of a planet. And yes, if it is on a very big scale, it can also be the rebirth of something that could be called a new galaxy. So this is all a matter of scale, but the processes are all according to the rules, so above, so below. So that is why in Theosophy all these things are being mentioned and studied to make you aware of the fact that all the patterns in nature and all the laws of nature are repeated at various levels of, let's say, macro and microcosmos, but also on inner and outer worlds. So it is every time the same process. That is why it is also expressed most of the time in such universal and abstract terms to make it fit on all those different planes. And that is also to make you aware that if you understand it, you can see it everywhere. But first you must study it in order to see it, to see the similarity.
One more question. You talked about different planes. Is there something higher than the highest plane of the universe or lower?
Well, the Theosophy starts from the first proposition, which is boundlessness, and that means that there is no beginning and there is no end. So there is infinity to the microcosmos and infinity to the macrocosmos. So there is no highest plane. There are relative highest or relative lowest planes, because since all manifested universe are hierarchies of life which are built up in various planes and layers, from the most spiritual to the most physical plane. And so there is a relative lowest plane and a relative highest plane, but every time there is above this highest point, there is again a new hierarchy, which also has the lowest plane and on the top the highest plane, and this goes on infinitely. So there is no bottom and there is no top, because it is all part of the boundless.
Well, and in your answers you inspired a new question.
Okay.
Is it possible to see matter of higher planes if we, for instance, observe the sky in the night? Maybe it's shining.
Well, what we can perceive with our senses, and also with the help of instruments like telescopes or radio telescopes or whatever instruments we use both for the microcosmos and the macrocosmos, that is limited to, let's say, the worlds of matter, the planes of matter. But if we study Theosophy, then we can discover that we have more abilities, more powers in ourselves, which if we develop those inner abilities, for instance, when we develop the higher parts of our thinking, of manas in Sanskrit, or even when we start to develop aspects which are parts of the Buddhic principle, then together with that, if we develop that in our consciousness, we will start to develop more parts of our inner, let's say, vehicles also. And in the end, we will be able also to perceive things which are on another plane of existence, higher planes of existence, because we will be able to perceive things with other senses than we have developed until now. And that is also the line of evolution for the whole of humanity, that we are going to develop on the long run other senses as well, but there are ways to develop this in an accelerated way by going the path of evolution accelerated, the path of the initiation. And if you do that, then it is possible that you develop these senses and this awareness or way of perceiving in a quicker way. And then, in fact, you can also be on those higher planes and become aware of what is there on these higher planes.
So much more to learn.
So much more to learn.
But for now, these were the questions. So you
can
continue with your lecture.
Thank you very much for your very inspiring questions, because I think we have an audience that is also aware of where the key things are, and that's very interesting. So we are going to dive a little bit deeper now. We will continue now with the next part, which is about force.